When hearts collide, the crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as Victoria Sterling balanced another tray of champagne glasses. Her feet ached in borrowed heels, and the black server's uniform felt stiff against her skin, but she forced a professional smile as she navigated through the crowd of elegantly dressed guests at the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala. Victoria had been working since dawn, first at the downtown coffee shop, then her afternoon shift at the bookstore, and now here, serving champagne to people who spent more on jewelry than she made in 6 months. The exhaustion was beginning to show, but she couldn't afford to lose this catering job. Her mother's medical bills were mounting, and every dollar counted. Champagne, where she offered to a group of women discussing their recent Paris trips. They barely acknowledged her presence, their conversation continuing without pause. Victoria had grown accustomed to being invisible in these circles, just another service worker fading into the background. Across the room, Gabriel Whitmore stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, his tailored tuxedo fitting perfectly as he gazed out at the city lights. At 34, he had built Whitmore Industries from a small tech startup into a billion-dollar empire. But success had come with its own chains. These social obligations felt more like performances than genuine charitable efforts. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," Diana Chen observed, approaching with 2 glasses of whiskey. His business partner and closest friend since college, Diana could read Gabriel's moods better than anyone. Gabriel accepted the glass. Gratefully? Is it that obvious? "Only to someone who knows you well," Diana replied with a knowing smile. "These events are necessary evils. The hospital really does benefit from the donations." "No," Gabriel sighed. "I just feel like we're all playing roles in some elaborate theater production. Everyone's here to be seen doing good, rather than actually caring." Before Diana could respond, a commotion near the serving station caught Gabriel's attention. A young woman in server's attire was being berated by an older gentleman whose shirt bore an obvious wine stain. Her face was flushed with embarrassment as she apologized repeatedly. "This is a $5,000 shirt," the man said loudly enough for nearby guests to stare. "Your clumsiness will cost more than you make in a month." Gabriel felt his jaw tighten as he watched the woman's hands tremble while she tried to clean the stain with a napkin. Without thinking, he began walking toward them, Diana following curiously. "Actually, Harold," Gabriel said as he approached, his voice carrying quiet authority, "accidents happen to everyone. I'm sure your insurance covers cleaning costs." Harold Peterson, a city councilman seeking Gabriel's support, immediately changed his tone. "Gabriel, of course you're right. I was just startled." But Gabriel's attention had shifted entirely to the young woman still staring at the stained shirt with obvious distress. Up close, he could see she was beautiful in a natural, unadorned way that was rare in his social circle. Auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences far removed from this superficial world. "Please don't worry about it," Gabriel said gently. "These things happen." Victoria looked up, expecting condescension. Instead, she found herself looking into warm brown eyes that held genuine kindness. The man was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair showing just a touch of silver at the temples. Something about his presence commanded attention without demanding it. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I can pay for the cleaning if necessary." "Absolutely not," Gabriel replied firmly. "Harold, send any cleaning bill to my office." His tone left no room for argument, and the councilman quickly melted back into the crowd. Victoria found herself alone with this stranger who had just rescued her from what could have been a very expensive mistake. "Thank you," she said, meaning it completely. "That was very kind." "I'm Gabriel," he said, extending his hand. When she took it, he noticed how cold her fingers were, despite the crowded ballroom's warmth. "Victoria," she replied, surprised by the gentle way he shook her hand. Its most wealthy guests barely acknowledged her existence, let alone treated her as an equal.
"Are you all right?" Gabriel asked, noting the pallor of her skin. "You look like you might need to sit down."
Victoria tried to dismiss his concern, but the gesture made her realize how shaky she felt. She had been running on adrenaline and caffeine for days, grabbing only a few hours of sleep between jobs. The stress of her mother's deteriorating condition was taking its toll. I'm fine, she insisted. But as she spoke, the room seemed to tilt slightly. The party sounds became muffled, and she felt a familiar, lightheaded sensation she had been ignoring for weeks. Gabriel saw the moment her composure cracked. Her face went from pale to ashen, and her eyes lost focus. He stepped closer instinctively, just as Victoria's knees began to buckle. I don't feel very well, she whispered, reaching out blindly for support. Gabriel caught her as she began to fall, his arms encircling her waist and pulling her against his chest. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, not just from the physical closeness, but from the vulnerability she displayed. Here was someone who worked herself to exhaustion serving others, who worried about paying for a stranger's shirt, who apologized even as she collapsed from fatigue. Gabriel called to his friend who had witnessed the entire exchange. Can you find somewhere quiet where she can rest? Diana nodded immediately, recognizing the protective tone in Gabriel's voice. She had never seen him react this way to anyone, let alone a woman he had just met. There's a private lounge off the main hallway, she said, leading the way. Gabriel lifted Victoria easily, carrying her toward the exit as concerned murmurs rippled through nearby guests. She felt surprisingly light in his arms, and he could smell the faint scent of vanilla in her hair, despite her obvious exhaustion. There was something about her that drew him in, a genuineness he hadn't encountered in years of moving through high society circles. As they reached the private lounge, Gabriel settled Victoria gently on one of the comfortable sofas, kneeling beside her as she slowly regained composure. Something extraordinary was beginning, though neither of them fully understood it yet. Coffee and confessions, the private lounge was elegantly furnished with soft lighting and comfortable sofas. Diana returned with water and crackers from the catering station as Gabriel knelt beside Victoria, his concern evident. I'm so embarrassed, Victoria said weakly as color slowly returned to her cheeks. This is completely unprofessional. When was the last time you ate something substantial? Gabriel asked, ignoring her self-recriminations. Victoria tried to remember, realizing she had grabbed only a piece of toast that morning before rushing to her first job. I had breakfast, she said unconvincingly. That's not what I asked, Gabriel replied gently but firmly. He had built his empire by reading people. Everything about Victoria suggested someone pushing herself far beyond her limits. As Victoria slowly sipped water and nibbled on crackers, Gabriel found himself studying her profile. Elegance to her features that had nothing to do with expensive makeup or styling. She was naturally beautiful, but more than that, there was something in her demeanor that spoke of strength and determination. Do you mind me asking why you're working yourself into the ground? Gabriel asked quietly. Victoria hesitated, unused to personal questions from the people she served. But something about Gabriel's manner invited honesty. My mother is sick, she said simply. The medical bills are overwhelming, so I work as many jobs as I can manage. The simple statement hit Gabriel harder than any sob story could have. There was no self-pity in her voice, no request for sympathy. She was stating facts, explaining why she pushed herself to the point of collapse without complaint. What kind of work do you normally do? Diana asked gently, settling into a nearby chair. At least I try to be. I paint when I have time, though. That's not very often lately. Gallery work and restaurant jobs pay the bills. Gabriel felt something shift inside his chest. Here was someone with passion and dreams who was sacrificing her aspirations to care for someone she loved. It was a kind of nobility his world rarely encountered. What kind of art do you create? He found himself asking, genuinely curious. Victoria's entire demeanor changed as she talked about her painting. Her eyes lit up, and her voice gained strength as she described her love for capturing human emotions in portraiture. Gabriel found himself captivated by her enthusiasm, the way she gestured as she spoke, the passion that transformed her tired features into something radiant. I'd love to see your work sometime, Gabriel said, surprising himself with the intensity of his interest. Victoria looked at him with wonder, as if the idea that someone like him would care about her art was incomprehensible. Really? Gabriel confirmed, meaning it completely. As Victoria's color returned and she seemed steadier, she began insisting she needed to return to work. I can't afford to lose this job, she explained apologetically. You're in no condition to be carrying heavy trays, Gabriel said firmly. Please don't speak to the manager, Victoria said quickly, panic flashing in her eyes. I need this work. Gabriel saw the fear in her expression and realized his intervention, however well-intentioned, could make her situation worse. Then let me walk you back, he offered instead. Make sure you're steady on your feet. As they made their way toward the ballroom, Gabriel found himself reluctant to let Victoria disappear back into the crowd of servers. Something significant had happened in that quiet lounge, a connection he hadn't felt in years. Victoria, he said as they reached the edge of the party. Would you allow me to check on you tomorrow? Make sure you're feeling better. She looked at him with surprise and something that might have been hope. Why would you want to do that? Gabriel considered his answer carefully. Because tonight, when you collapsed in my arms, something changed. For me, I can't explain it, but I know I don't want this to be the last time we talk. Victoria stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. What she found instead was an honesty that took her breath away. I work at Morrison's Cafe on 5th Street, she said quietly. I'm there most afternoons. Gabriel smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his entire face. Then I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. The next day, the afternoon sun streamed through Morrison's Cafe's large windows, casting golden rectangles across the worn wooden floors. Victoria wiped down tables with practiced efficiency, her movements more energetic than they had been in weeks. She had actually slept 8 full hours the night before, something that hadn't happened since her mother's diagnosis 3 months ago. Every few minutes, her eyes drifted toward the front door, though she tried to convince herself that Gabriel wouldn't actually show up. Men like him didn't visit neighborhood cafes to check on exhausted waitresses. The previous evening, it felt almost dreamlike now. The bell above the door chimed, and Victoria looked up from the espresso machine she was cleaning. Her breath caught as Gabriel walked in, looking somehow even more handsome in casual clothes than he had in his formal tuxedo. He wore dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt, but the expensive fabric marked him as clearly out of place in the modest cafe. Victoria, he said, his face lighting up with a smile that made her heart skip. How are you feeling today? Several customers turned to look at the interaction, and Victoria became acutely aware of her simple uniform and the coffee stains on her apron. Much better, thank you, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Can I get you something too? Drink. Gabriel approached the counter, studying the handwritten menu board. What do you recommend? The Colombian roast is excellent, Victoria said, falling into the familiar rhythm of customer service. And Emma, the owner, makes incredible pastries. Then I'll have the Colombian black, and whatever pastry you think I should try. As Victoria prepared his order, Gabriel found himself watching her every movement. There was grace in the way she worked, a competence that spoke of someone who took pride in doing things well, no matter how simple the task. When she handed him his coffee and a slice of Emma's famous apple cinnamon scone, their fingers brushed briefly. The contact sent a small electric shock through both of them, and Gabriel saw Victoria's cheeks flush slightly. This is delicious, Gabriel said after tasting the coffee. You were right about the Colombian roast? Victoria smiled, a genuine expression that made her entire face glow. Emma sources the beans directly from a small farm in the mountains. She's very particular about quality. Gabriel found a small table near the window and was surprised when Victoria approached during a lull in customers. What? Carrying her own cup of coffee? Do you mind if I sit for a moment? She asked hesitantly. It's been a slow afternoon. Please, Gabriel said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I was hoping we could talk. As Victoria settled into the chair, Gabriel realized this was the first time he had sat in a cafe like this in years. His meetings usually took place in expensive restaurants or corporate boardrooms, but there was something refreshing about the simple surroundings. The honest conversation, and the woman across from him, who seemed to embody everything real that had been missing from his life. I wanted to thank you again for last night, Victoria said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. Not just for helping with that man, but for catching me when I fell. Gabriel's expression grew serious. Victoria, what happened last night? It wasn't just about being in the right place at the right time, There was something about meeting you that felt ... significant. Victoria looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. I felt it too, she admitted quietly. But I don't understand why someone like you would be interested in someone like me. Someone like me, Gabriel repeated, his brow furrowing. And what exactly am I like? Victoria gestured vaguely at his expensive clothes, his confident bearing. Successful? Wealthy? You move in circles I could never belong to? Gabriel leaned forward, his voice earnest. Victoria, last night was the first time in years that I met someone who seemed completely genuine. Someone who wasn't trying to impress me or get something from me. You have any idea how rare that is? Before Victoria could respond, Emma appeared at their table with a warm smile. Victoria, dear, why don't you take your break? I can handle things here. Victoria looked surprised. Are you sure, Emma? I don't want to leave you short-handed. Go, Emma said with a knowing wink. Some conversations are more important than coffee service. As they stepped outside into the warm afternoon air, Gabriel turned to Victoria with a question that would change everything. Would you show me some of your art? I meant what I said last night. I'd really like to see your work. Victoria's eyes widened with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. They're just paintings, she said hesitantly. Nothing fancy. I don't care about fancy, Gabriel said softly. I care about what matters to you. And in that moment, Victoria realized that this extraordinary man was offering her something she had never dared to hope for, someone who valued not just her service, but her dreams. Colors of the Heart. Victoria's small studio apartment was a world away from the luxury Gabriel was accustomed to. But as she nervously unlocked the door, he felt more anticipation than he had in years. The space was tiny, but filled with warmth. Canvases propped against every available wall. Brushes and paints organized on a small table by the window, and the lingering scent of oil paint and turpentine. It's not much, Victoria said apologetically, suddenly seeing her home through his eyes. I converted the bedroom into a studio and sleep on the pull-out couch. Gabriel said nothing as he moved slowly through the space, drawn to the paintings that covered nearly every surface. Each canvas told a story, portraits of people caught in moments of genuine emotion, landscapes that captured not just scenery, but feeling. It's abstract pieces that seemed to pulse with life. Victoria, he said softly, stopping before a striking portrait of an elderly woman whose eyes held both sadness and deep love. These are extraordinary. That's my mother, Victoria said, joining him in front of the painting. I painted it last month, during one of her good days. Studied the work with growing amazement. The technical skill was impressive, but it was the emotion captured in every brushstroke that took his breath away. This wasn't just art, it was raw human experience translated onto canvas. You're incredibly talented, he said, turning to face her. These belong in galleries, not hidden away in an apartment. Victoria's cheeks flushed pink. I've tried a few local galleries, but they're not interested in unknown artists, and I don't have the connections or money to pursue it properly. Gabriel felt a familiar surge of protectiveness, mixed with something deeper. What if I told you I could help change that? I wouldn't let you, Victoria said quickly. I appreciate everything you've done already, but I can't accept charity. Not charity, Gabriel said, his voice gentle but firm. Investment? I know art, Victoria. I know talent when I see it. I know that what you've created here deserves to be seen by the world. Victoria looked at him with wonder and fear warring in her expression. Why? Why would you want to help me? Gabriel moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. Because yesterday, when you collapsed in my arms, I felt something I'd never experienced before. And today, seeing your art, understanding your passion, Victoria, you've made me remember what it feels like to be truly alive. The words hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Victoria's breath caught as she saw the sincerity in Gabriel's eyes, the way he looked at her as if she were something precious. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of believing. This is real, of hoping for something I might lose. Gabriel reached out, gently taking her hands in his. I can't promise you won't get hurt, but I can promise you that what I'm feeling is real. I hope that you might be feeling something similar. Victoria's heart raced as she looked up at him. I am, she admitted. But Gabriel, we're from completely different worlds. People like you don't end up with people like me. People like us, Gabriel said, stepping closer, end up exactly where we're meant to be. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang, shattering the moment. She glanced at the caller ID, and her face went pale. It's the hospital, she said, her voice tight with worry. I have to take this. Gabriel watched as Victoria answered the call, her free hand gripping the back of a chair. He could only hear her side of the conversation, but her increasingly strained responses told him everything he needed to know. Yes, I understand, Victoria was saying. Tomorrow morning? But I thought we had more time. Yes, I'll be there. She hung up. Tears were streaming down her face. Gabriel immediately moved to her side, his arms encircling her as she began to sob. What is it? He asked gently. My mother, Victoria choked out. The doctors say she's getting worse faster than expected. They want to try an experimental treatment, but it's not covered by insurance. It costs $40,000 and they need a decision by tomorrow. Gabriel felt Victoria's body shake with sobs as the full weight of her situation crashed over her. Everything she had been working toward, all those multiple jobs and sleepless nights, and it still wasn't enough. I don't know what to do, she whispered against his chest. I've already mortgaged everything I own. I can't lose her, Gabriel. She's all I have. Without hesitation, Gabriel tilted her chin up to look at him. You won't lose her, he said with quiet certainty. I'll take care of the treatment costs. Victoria pulled back, shaking her head violently. No, absolutely not. I can't let you. Do that? Victoria, $40,000 is nothing to me. It's less than I spend on my car insurance. That's not the point, Victoria said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I won't be someone's charity case. Won't be the poor girl you rescued with your money. Gabriel felt his heart break a little at the pride and pain in her voice. Is that what you think this is? You think I'm some wealthy man playing at being a hero? I don't know what to think, Victoria said, exhaustion and emotion making her voice shake. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday I was just a waitress you'd never noticed, and today you're offering to pay for my mother's treatment. Make sense? Gabriel took her hands again, his voice urgent. Victoria, look at me. Really look at me? When she met his eyes, he continued, I've spent years surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, connections, status. But you've asked me for nothing. You've given me more in 2 days than most people have given me in a lifetime. You've shown me what it means to care about something beyond profit margins and board meetings. Gabriel. Let me finish, he said softly. I'm not offering to help your mother because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering because I care about you. Because in less than 48 hours, you've become important to me in a way I didn't think was possible. Victoria stared at him, tears still flowing. But now they were mixed with something else. Hope. If you won't let me help as a gift, Gabriel continued, then let me help as a loan. You can pay me back over time, whatever terms you want. Please, don't let pride stand in the way of saving your mother's life. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, and Gabriel could practically see her internal struggle. Finally, she spoke. A loan, she said quietly. With a proper contract and reasonable interest rates. Whatever you want, Gabriel agreed immediately. And this doesn't change anything between us, Victoria continued, her voice growing stronger. I need to know that whatever is happening between us isn't about money or gratitude. Gabriel cupped her face in his hands, thumbs gently wiping away. Her tears? Victoria, what's happening between us has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the fact that you're the most genuine, courageous, beautiful person I've ever met. It has to do with the fact that I can't stop thinking about you. And I don't want to. And then, as if drawn by forces beyond their control, Gabriel leaned down and Victoria rose up on her tiptoes. And their lips met in a kiss that was tender, desperate, and full of promises neither of them had expected to make. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, and Victoria's eyes were shining with a mixture of tears and joy. "I'll call the hospital," Gabriel said softly. "The money will be available first thing tomorrow morning." Victoria nodded, then wrapped her arms around his neck, holding him close. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Gabriel held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her body against his. In helping her, he realized she had inadvertently rescued him from a life of hollow success and meaningless connections. He said quietly, "Thank you." As they stood there in her small studio, surrounded by her art and the promise of a future neither had dared to imagine, both knew that their lives had irrevocably changed. The scared, exhausted waitress and the lonely billionaire had found in each other something neither had known they were looking for, a love that would transform them both. Trials and tribulations. 3 weeks later, Victoria sat in the hospital waiting room. Her hands clasped tightly in her lap as she watched the clock on the wall. Her mother's treatment was showing promising signs, but the road to recovery would be long. Gabriel had been by her side through every doctor's appointment, every anxious moment, every small victory. "Victoria Sterling?" A well-dressed woman approached, her smile sharp and calculating. I'm Margaret Thornton from the City Social Register. I was hoping to speak with you about your relationship with Gabriel Whitmore." Over the past weeks, she had noticed photographers occasionally following them, gossip columnists asking questions, but Gabriel had shielded her from most of it. "I'm sorry, but I don't have anything to say," Victoria said, standing to leave. "Ms. Sterling, the public has a right to know about Gabriel's personal life. He's a prominent businessman, and his romantic interests are newsworthy. Wouldn't you prefer to tell your side of the story?" Victoria shook her head and walked away, but Margaret's voice followed her. "We're running the story either way, with or without your cooperation." 2 days later, Victoria's phone began ringing incessantly. The headline blazed across the front page of the city's largest tabloid, "Billionaire's Charity. Gabriel Whitmore's latest conquest is a struggling waitress." The article was cruel and invasive, detailing Victoria's financial struggles, her mother's illness, and painting their relationship as either a publicity stunt or a wealthy man's temporary fascination with helping the poor. They had somehow obtained information about her mother's treatment costs and were implying that Victoria was using Gabriel for his money. Victoria sat in her studio apartment, staring at the newspaper with tears streaming down her face. Her phone showed dozens of missed calls from unknown numbers. She could see photographers gathered outside her building. When Gabriel arrived an hour later, using the back entrance to avoid the media circus, he found Victoria packing her art supplies with shaking hands. "Victoria, what are you doing?" "I'm leaving," she said without looking at him. "I can't do this to you. Look at what they're saying about you, about us." Gabriel took the newspaper from her hands, scanning the article with growing anger. "These people don't know anything about us, but they know enough to hurt you," Victoria said, her voice breaking. "They know about the money, about my mother, about everything private and personal. They're making you look like a fool." "I don't care what they say about me," Gabriel said firmly. "I care about what they're saying about you. I care about the fact that you're letting them drive you away." Victoria finally looked at him, her eyes red with tears. "Gabriel, look at this realistically. I'm a waitress from a poor family. You're a billionaire. This was never going to work, says who?" Gabriel demanded. "Says the gossip columnists. Says people who don't know us, who don't understand what we have. Says reality," Victoria said quietly. "I read the comments online. People are calling me a gold digger, a social climber. They're saying I'm using my mother's illness to manipulate you." Gabriel moved closer, his voice urgent. "Victoria, do you remember what you told me about your art? About how you paint what's real, what's true? Well, this is real. What we have is true. Don't let other people's opinions destroy something beautiful." Victoria wanted to believe him, but the weight of public scrutiny felt overwhelming. "Not just the gossip, Gabriel. It's everything. I went to dinner with your business associates last week, and I could see them judging me. I don't know which fork to use for which course. I don't understand their references to places and people I've never heard of." "None of that matters," Gabriel said, taking her hands. "The people who matter don't care about forks and references. Diana likes you. My assistant Thomas thinks you're wonderful. The real people in my life see what I see. But what about your business? Your reputation? Gabriel was quiet for a moment, then spoke with conviction. My business will survive. My reputation will survive. But I don't think I'll survive losing you. Victoria's resolve began to waver at the raw honesty in his voice. Gabriel, I love you, he said simply. I know it's only been a few weeks, but I love you. Not because you're grateful, not because you need help, but because you're you. You're kind and talented and genuine. And you make me want to be a better man. Victoria stared at him, her heart pounding. I love you too, she whispered. But I'm scared. I'm scared of this world you live in, of not being enough, of embarrassing you. You could never embarrass me, Gabriel said, pulling her into his arms. But I understand your fear, so let me prove to you that we can handle whatever comes. Our way. Before Victoria could ask what he meant, Gabriel was pulling out his phone and making a call. Thomas, I need you to arrange a press conference for tomorrow afternoon. It's time to set the record straight. Victoria's eyes widened. Gabriel, what are you doing? Fighting for us? He said with determination. I'm going to tell the world exactly who you are and what you mean to me. And I'm going to make sure they understand that anyone who wants to attack you will have to go through me first. The next afternoon, Gabriel stood at a podium in the conference room of Whitmore Industries with Victoria beside him. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Victoria's hand was trembling in his, but she stood straight and tall, drawing strength from Gabriel's presence. Ladies and gentlemen, Gabriel began, his voice clear and authoritative. Speculation about my personal life. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. 3 weeks ago, I met Victoria Sterling.
Ow.
She was working at a charity gala, not as a guest, but as a server. She was exhausted from working multiple jobs to pay. For her mother's medical treatment, when she collapsed from overwork, I caught her. In that moment, my life changed forever. Gabrielle squeezed Victoria's hand. I've read the articles calling her a gold digger, suggesting she's using me for my money. Let me be clear, Victoria. Sterling is the most principled person I've ever met. She refused my help initially, insisted on a loan rather than a gift, and has asked me for nothing except the chance to get to know each other. He turned to look at Victoria, his love evident. In his eyes, she's also an incredibly talented artist whose work deserves recognition based on merit, not controversy. Victoria has shown me what it means to work hard for something you believe in, to sacrifice for someone you love, and to maintain your integrity even when life gets difficult. Gabriel faced the cameras again. So yes, I'm in love with Victoria Sterling, and I'm proud to be. Anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to take it up with me directly. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Whitmore, what do you say to critics who argue that this relationship is inappropriate given the economic disparity between you? Gabriel's jaw tightened. I say that love doesn't recognize economic boundaries. I say that judging a relationship based on bank account balances rather than character and compatibility is exactly the kind of shallow thinking that keeps good people apart. Another reporter called out, Miss Sterling, how do you respond to accusations that you're using your mother's illness to manipulate Mr. Whitmore? Victoria stepped forward to the microphone, her voice clear despite her nervousness. My mother's illness is not a manipulation tool. It's a devastating reality that has consumed my life for months. Gabriel's offer to help came from genuine kindness, not from any request on my part. The fact that some people can't understand generosity without assuming ulterior motives says more about them than it does about us. Gabriel smiled proudly at her response. Did any other questions? A young reporter in the back raised his hand. What are your plans for the future? Gabriel looked at Victoria, then back at the crowd. We're taking it one day at a time. We're getting to know each other, supporting each other, and building something real. Beyond that, our private life will remain private. As they left the press conference, Victoria felt simultaneously drained and empowered. Do you think it helped? She asked. Doesn't matter, Gabriel said, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. What matters is that we faced it together, that now everyone knows exactly where I stand. Over the following weeks, the media attention gradually died down. Some outlets continued to speculate, but others began focusing on Victoria's art after. Gabriel arranged for several of her pieces to be displayed in a prominent gallery. The public response was overwhelmingly positive. Her work spoke for itself. Independent of her relationship with Gabriel, Victoria's mother continued to improve, slowly but steadily. The experimental treatment was working, and doctors were cautiously optimistic about her long-term prognosis. Victoria was able to reduce her work schedule from 3 jobs to 1, giving her more time to paint and, more importantly, to spend with Gabriel. One evening, as they walked through the city park, where they had started taking regular evening strolls, Victoria stopped suddenly. "Gabriel," she said, her voice serious, "I need to tell you something." Gabriel's heart skipped a beat at her tone. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about everything that's happened, about the press conference, about how you stood up for us. I realized something." "What?" Victoria took his hands in hers, looking directly into his eyes. "I realized that I've been so focused on all the ways we're different, all the reasons it might not work, that I haven't been fully appreciating what we have. You've shown me what it means to be loved unconditionally, to have someone believe in me and my dreams. You've given me hope for a future I never dared to imagine." Gabriel felt his breath catch. Victoria, ... "I love you," she said, her voice strong and certain. "Not because you helped my mother, not because you've opened doors for my art, but because you see me, the real me. And somehow, impossibly, you love what you see." Gabriel pulled her close, his heart full to bursting. "I love you too, more than I ever thought possible." As they kissed in the soft glow of the park's lamplights, both knew they had weathered their first real storm together. The challenges weren't over. There would be more scrutiny, more adjustments, more moments of doubt. But they had proven to themselves and to the world that what they had was real, strong, and worth fighting for. The scared, exhausted waitress and the lonely billionaire had found in each other not just love, but partnership. They were building something together that was greater than the sum of their individual parts. Neither the media nor society's expectations could diminish what they had created, but their greatest test was still to come. Forever begins 6 months later. Victoria stood in her first solo art exhibition, surrounded by paintings that told the story of her journey from struggling waitress to recognized artist. The gallery was packed with collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts, all drawn by the raw emotion and technical skill evident in every piece. Gabriel watched from across the room, his heart swelling with pride as he saw Victoria confidently discussing her work with potential buyers. She had blossomed in ways he never could have imagined, finding her voice not just as an artist, but as a woman who knew her worth. "She's remarkable," Diana said, appearing at Gabriel's side with 2 glasses of wine. "I've never seen you happier." "Saved me," Gabriel said simply. "I didn't even realize how empty my life had become until she filled it with meaning." Victoria caught his eye across the room and smiled, that same radiant expression that had captured his heart months ago. She excused herself from her conversation and made her way over to him. "How are you feeling?" Gabriel asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. Terrified and exhilarated, Victoria laughed. "I keep waiting for someone to tell me this is all a mistake, that I don't belong here." "You belong here more than anyone," Gabriel said firmly. "These paintings are extraordinary, Victoria. You've poured your heart onto these canvases, and people are responding to that authenticity, as if to prove his point." A well-dressed couple approached them, the woman's eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Miss Sterling," the woman said, "I'm Margaret Caldwell from the Metropolitan Museum. We're interested in acquiring 3 of your pieces for our permanent collection." Victoria's eyes widened in shock. "The Metropolitan Museum? Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Margaret confirmed. "Your work has a rare quality. It speaks to something universal in the human experience. We'd be honored to display it." After Margaret left, Victoria turned to Gabriel, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe this is happening." "I can," Gabriel said, wiping away her tears. "I've believed in you from the moment I saw your first painting." The evening continued with sale after sale, critical acclaim, and expressions of interest from galleries across the country. Victoria's art career was no longer a dream. it was a reality. As the exhibition wound down, Gabriel took Victoria's hand. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice slightly nervous. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about what you said in the park that night, about building something together.
Oh.
And I realized there's something I want to build. With you?" Gabriel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Victoria's breath caught as he dropped to one knee in the middle of the gallery, surrounded by her artwork and the people who had come to celebrate her success. "Victoria Sterling," Gabriel said, his voice clear and strong, "you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've shown me what it means to love someone not for what they can give you, but for who they are. You've taught me about courage, about sacrifice, about the kind of strength that comes from fighting for what matters." He opened the box to reveal a stunning but elegant ring, clearly chosen with care rather than simply for its price tag. "I love your art, your passion, your determination. I love the way you care for your mother, the way you work for everything. You achieve the way you see beauty in the world, even when life is difficult. I love who you are, and I love who I am when I'm with you." Victoria was crying now, her hands covering her mouth as she stared down at the man who had become her world. "Will you marry me?" Gabriel asked. "Will you build a life with me, create a future together, and let me spend the rest of my days trying to deserve the love you've given me?" "Yes," Victoria whispered. Then louder, "Yes. Yes. Of course yes." The gallery erupted in applause as Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. Victoria threw her arms around his neck, not caring that everyone was watching, not caring about anything except the man in her arms and the incredible life they were building together. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Gabriel replied. "Forever." 1 year later, Victoria stood in the bridal suite of a small, elegant chapel, adjusting her simple but beautiful wedding dress. It wasn't the grand society wedding that gossip columnists had predicted, but rather an intimate ceremony with only their closest friends and family. Her mother, now in remission and looking healthier than she had in years, bustled around her, adjusting her veil and fighting back tears. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her mother said. "Your father would be so proud." "I wish he could be here," Victoria said softly. "He is," her mother replied, squeezing her hand. "And he'd be so happy to see you marrying a man who loves you the way Gabriel does." Diana knocked on the door. "Victoria, it's time." Victoria took a deep breath, looked at herself one final time in the mirror, and smiled. The scared, exhausted waitress was gone, replaced by a confident woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to claim her happiness. As she walked down the aisle, Victoria's eyes found Gabriel immediately. He was standing at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. But it wasn't his clothes that took her breath away. It was the expression on his face. He was looking at her as if she were the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, as if he couldn't believe his luck in finding her. When she reached him, Gabriel took her hands in his, and the rest of the world faded away. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of two souls who have found in each other not just love, partnership, not just passion, but purpose. As they exchanged vows they had written themselves, both Gabriel and Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with a chance encounter, a moment of vulnerability, and a spark of connection that had grown into something neither had expected. "Gabriel," Victoria said, her voice strong and clear, "you caught me when I was falling, literally and figuratively. You showed me that love isn't about what you can give someone or what they can give you. It's about choosing to build something together, day after day, through good times and challenging ones. You've supported my dreams, celebrated my successes, and stood by me through every obstacle. I promise to do the same for you for the rest of our lives." Gabriel's voice was thick with emotion as he spoke. "Victoria, you showed me what it means to be truly alive. You taught me that success isn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in the depth of our connections and the authenticity of our love. You've made me a better man, and I promise to spend every day of our marriage trying to be worthy of the gift you've given me. I promise to love you, support you, and choose you every single day for the rest of my life." As they exchanged rings and the minister pronounced them husband and wife, both knew that this was just the beginning. They had already weathered storms together, faced down critics, and proven that their love was stronger than any obstacle. When Gabriel kissed his bride, sealing their union, the small congregation erupted in applause. But Victoria and Gabriel only had eyes for each other, lost in the moment and the promise of their future together. Later, the reception, Gabriel stood to make a toast. "A year and a half ago, I was a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing that truly mattered. Then Victoria literally fell into my arms, and my life changed forever. She's taught me that the best things in life aren't things at all. There are moments like this, surrounded by people we love, celebrating something real and beautiful." He looked at Victoria, his eyes shining with love. "Victoria, you've given me a life I never dared to dream of. You've shown me what it means to be part of something bigger than myself. I love you more than words can express, and I can't wait to see what adventures await us." Victoria stood, raising her own glass. "To my husband," she said, the word feeling wonderful on her lips, "who saw something in me that I didn't even know, was there, who helped me become the woman I was meant to be, and to all of you who have supported us through everything. Thank you for believing in our love story." As the evening progressed, Victoria and Gabriel danced their first dance as husband and wife, swaying to music that seemed to have been written just for them. Around them, their friends and family celebrated, but the newlyweds were lost in their own world. "No regrets?" Gabriel asked softly as they danced. Victoria smiled, the same radiant expression that had captivated him from the beginning. "Only that we can't do this day over again. It's been perfect." "The day has been perfect," Gabriel agreed. "But it's just the beginning. We have the rest of our lives to create perfect moments together." As the song ended, and they were surrounded by loved ones offering congratulations and well wishes, Victoria reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. From an exhausted waitress collapsing at a charity gala to a successful artist, married to the love of her life, it seemed like something out of a fairy tale. But it wasn't a fairy tale. It was real life, with all its challenges and imperfections. They had worked for their happiness, fought for their love, and chosen each other every single day. And they would continue to do so, building a life together that was authentic, meaningful, and filled with the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. Years later, as Victoria and Gabriel sat in their garden, watching their children play while she worked on her latest painting, they would often reflect on that first night. When she had fainted in his arms, it had been the beginning of everything, not just their love story, but their real lives. Gabriel had learned that true success wasn't measured in dollars or acquisitions, but in the depth of his relationships and the impact he had on others. Victoria had discovered that she was worthy of love and capable of achieving her dreams, not in spite of her humble beginnings, but because of the strength and character they had given her. Together, they had built something beautiful, a marriage, based on mutual respect, shared values, and unwavering support for each other's dreams. They had faced every challenge as a team, celebrated every success together, created a love story that would inspire others for generations to come, and it all started with a chance encounter, a moment of vulnerability, and the courage to believe that love could conquer any obstacle. The end.